Greetings to you all. It is an absolute honor for us to be given this time to talk and the opportunity to give our thoughts words when it comes to the theme health, migration, and labor exploitation. My name is Sweeta, and I will be taking you through the first half of our presentation, after which I will give the floor to my co-presenter, Deepika, who will take you through the second half. Labor exploitation in the modern day is a reality, though it is often seen as a thing of the past due to the rising of various human rights movements and a number of highly active NGOs who act as the mouthpiece of the vulnerable. This perception is many times challenged by the facts and statistics at hand, statistics that expose the rotten core of humanity. Just to give you the overview of the intensity of the situation, here are some statistics to back up our argument. According to International Labour Organization, at any given time in 2016, an estimated 40.3 million people are in modern slavery, including 24.9 million in forced labor and 15.4 million in forced marriage. It means there are 5.4 victims of modern slavery for every 1,000 people trapped in forced labor. 16 million people are exploited in private sector, such as domestic work, construction, and agriculture. 4.8 million persons in forced sexual exploitation and 4 million persons in forced labor imposed by state authorities. Women and girls are disproportionately affected by forced labor, accounting to 99% of victims in commercial sex industry and 58% in other sectors. It also claims that more than 11 million people in Asia Pacific are victims of forced labor, accounting for well over half of the global estimated number of 21 million victims. Estimated the other way, at least 3 in every 1,000 people in Asia Pacific are in forced labor, trapped in jobs in which they are coerced or deceived and which they cannot leave. Domestic work, construction, manufacturing, and entertainment are among the sectors where forced labor is most often found. During the course of our presentation, we will cover four major topics, four major areas of discussion. Firstly, we will be establishing connection between mental well-being and displacement and relocation of people through labor migration. Then we will move on to identifying the effects of this displacement on maternal health, moving on to highlighting the changes brought about in culinary and medicinal landscape. And finally, we will analyze the health in the diaspora. The effects of displacement and relocation of people on mental health may not be direct or obvious, but the deteriorating mental state of victims can no doubt be seen in the far horizon. The counterfactual force migration can be death, violence, perceived threats of bodily harm, psychological distress, or severe economic loss. As you can see in the concept map that is shown, when a person is displaced or relocated for the purpose of providing labor force, he or she is taken out from one environment and introduced to another. In the host environment, the labor may be subjected to a variety of unjust practices, such as discrimination, violence, and exposure to occupational hazards, which will eventually lead to a great deal of stress, which in itself is a mental issue. Given the potential modifiers, such as unfair distribution of income and prejudice towards age and gender, only intensify the deteriorating mental state of the displaced. The members of the displaced population are highly likely to develop the risk of mental disorders such as depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and psychosis. Being deprived of the basic human rights and freedom does not only allow room for laborers to question their self-worth and integrity, they also question their sense of being. Harassment is a leading cause of stress and mental injury, with particular patterns and consequences for marginalized workers. Oppression is the root of cause of all sorts of harassment. Marginalized workers are most affected, but all workers suffer. Poor working conditions contribute to harassment of marginalized workers, and privatization is making things worse. We need far-reaching solutions to say the least. Oppression captures racism, sexism, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, classism, and other socially constructed systems of power and domination. These systems are interacting and mutually enforcing and cannot be addressed in isolation. Moving on to our second subtopic, effects of labor exploitation and migration on maternal health. According to a research paper written by Sheila Akbar Ali Hirani and Solina Richer, given the aforementioned key challenges of forced displacement, the ultimate outcome is a sudden rise in maternal child mortality and morbidity, maladjustment, psychological issues, altered familial roles, displaced parenting, and vulnerability of exploitation. To put it simply, being displaced increases the chance of developing severe health issues, both for a mother and a child. Now I will give the floor to my co-presenter, Deepika, to continue with the presentation.
Moving on to changes of culinary and medicinal landscape as seen in the picture. Aloe vera. Aloe vera is used on face as a moisturizer and soothes the cut when applied. Turmeric. Turmeric is a herb to keep bones strong and fights dementia. Marigold is a herb to address cuts, sores, and general skin care. Lemon balm helps to relieve stress. Basil helps to relax mood. Rosemary helps to elevate muscle pain. So moving on, how did the knowledge, herbs and spices transported through slavery and indenture change the culinary and medicinal landscape of the new homeland? The abolition of the slave trade in the British Empire in 1807 and of slavery itself in 1833 created a labor shortage in Fiji, among other countries. Migration and displacement of laborers did not only provide the host country with the labor force it needed, but also introduced knowledge, herbs and spices to a new land, resulting is the change in culinary and medicinal landscape of the new homeland for the better. The villages in Fiji Islands already had a long history with plant usage for medicinal purposes. Despite the usage of traditional medicines in Fiji Islands, the indigenous knowledge is not sufficiently documented. Parts of plants commonly used in traditional medicine were leaves, stem, flowers, barks, roots, and fruits. The indentured laborers who came to Fiji brought with them their own Indian cuisine, complete with traditional seasonings and ways of cooking. Most important of their spice were the curries. While the British brought curry to their English-speaking colonies, it was Indians themselves who took their eating habits to the rest of the empire. The basic ingredients of a typical Fijian spice mixture is cumin, coriander, fenugreek, and turmeric are what would be used in a peasant household here in Fiji. The substitute for coriander is a local herb called shadow beni that grows wild in drainage ditches. Curries are accompanied by chutneys and sauces, including mango kuchla, a mango and mustard oil pickle. Curries, a common main course, are usually served with rotis made from white flour and accompanied by relishes and pickles. Culinary delights, which were unknown in the modern world, and the knowledge of herbal medicine changed the course of the modern world forever. Accounting for the intensity of negative effects of displacement of labors, the positive effects are often overshadowed. Now moving on to analysis of health in diaspora. Individual factors include age, sex, heredity factors. Lifestyle factors are economy, class, cultural linguistic barriers, and substance abuse. Working condition, access to existence of jobs providing living wage. The social and community factors is the existence of discrimination, stigma, and social inclusion. Governance and socio-economic conditions whereby existence of legislation and policies affecting migrants' health. In conclusion, despite the numerous occupants in which extreme exploitation had been found to occur, health research has been limited, with most research focused on the health of victims of trafficking for sexual exploitation. As greater attention turns to people who have been exploited in labor sectors, it is necessary to understand the range of occupational health and safety risks and hazardous working and living conditions of workers exploited in specific sectors. The key challenges during post displacement include food insecurity, lack of shelter, unavailability of clean water and sanitation, poor infrastructure of healthcare services, unavailability of birth attendants, and healthcare professionals to manage medical emergencies, inaccessibility to educational and training facilities, and lack of cultural sensitivity of humanitarian workers. Thank you.